Kia ora, I'm Barry Jackson and welcome back to Growing in Jesus for chapters 9 to 13, so 5 chapters in this month's video. The thought to start off this month is about asking questions like the ones we use at the start of each chapter. In Mark 8, Jesus asked his disciples who people were saying he was, and then he made it more personal by asking them who they thought he was. Using an open-ended question starting with a word like how, what, where, when, who or why is good educational practice. In Mark 8, it helped Peter to make a confession of faith in Jesus. For us, it can also bring out misunderstandings which can be gently put right, as when Nicodemus questioned Jesus in John chapter 3, for example. Each of the chapters in Growing in Jesus starts with an open-ended question, and you can ask others as it seems helpful as you go through the book. Let's now look at chapter 9, which asks a really important question: who is Jesus? This chapter is about the many times when Jesus stated or showed us that he was divine and equal with God the Father. He made direct statements like, "I and the Father are one," in John 10:30, meaning he was of the same essence or substance as the Father. He also did things that were only possible if he was God, like forgiving sins and receiving worship. The to-do activity at the end this week is about exploring genetic features which might show up in both children and parents. The idea is along the lines of he or she has their father or mother's hair or nose. You could ask afterwards, what way where Jesus is revealed as God is most meaningful to you at present? Chapter 10 asks the question, what are angels and what do they do? Angels appear throughout the Bible, bringing messages from God, protecting or strengthening God's people, and generally helping people find their way to God. They're still active today, and children are assigned a guardian angel. We're reminded that sometimes when we pray to God, he may use an angel to help us. The to-do activity appropriately this week is making paper chain angels. You could ask afterwards, how have we responded to the angel's message to Mary that Jesus would save his people from their sins? Chapter 11 asks the question, how does God watch over our lives? This chapter talks about God's providence, a word that we may not come across much, but which means how God works for good in his plan for our lives. Although we can't always understand the reason for difficulties when they crop up, the life and the sacrifice of Jesus proves God's unfailing love for us. He is also at work and present in our lives for good by his Spirit, even when we can't see him or feel his presence. And we're reminded that Jesus is praying for us in heaven right now. The to-do activity is a challenge to carry a raw egg around for a day and care for it in such a way that it stays unbroken. You could ask afterwards, think of some times when the Gospels tell us that Jesus stopped what he was doing to spend time with just one person. What does this tell us about God's attitude to us? Chapter 12 is what does it mean that God has a plan for my life? In Exodus 19:4, God said to Moses about the nation of Israel that he was leading, "You have seen what I did to the Egyptians. You know how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself." This chapter is about how God knows and cares about the details of our lives, but even more importantly, that he wants us to have a growing relationship with him. The to-do activity this week is Snakes and Ladders, a game with plenty of twists and turns in it. There may be opportunities during the game to share together about how God has led us in life. You could ask the question afterwards, how might Jesus want us to trust him now for what's just ahead of us? Chapter 13 is what happened when Adam and Eve were tempted to do wrong. This chapter is about the story of what we call the fall, or what happened to humankind when Adam and Eve gave in to temptation from Satan and disobeyed God for the first time. It discusses the strategies that Satan used and how we can learn from those to avoid temptation ourselves with the help of Jesus, who has defeated Satan. The to-do activity this week is making a mango lassi, or some other garden-based treat that you might like, that represents the Garden of Eden, reminding us of the goodness of friendship with him that God calls us back to. And finally, you could ask the question afterwards, how will we respond to the offer of forgiveness that Jesus has bought for us on the cross? God bless you.